Well, it's been a while, but we're back with another edition of Smells Like Cinematic Sadness, where we're delving into the best of bad movies. We originally planned to do this for a New Year's resolution uh, special, but things got in the way, but we're back, so we thought we'd keep going with it. So we thought we'd dive into the 1993 splatstick Australian, or Ozploitation as they call it, classic, well, that may be too kind, Body Melt.
Yes.
Body Melt. We first saw Body Melt back, well, that's a story in of itself, but we'll just talk about the movie. So,
well, one of the things we should talk about, we can just one of the things that drew us first to this film was the cover art, and the back cover art. As usual with most of the things that we saw, what really got us was the cover art. So that's kind of, and you'll see when you see some of the cover art why it was a bit appealing to us.
Yeah, it had this really garish like exoskeleton, and with like all the different musculature groups and all that, and it said Body Melt, and so we're like, we'll try this out, and it was it's one of those really weird movies where you watch it and you're like, I don't quite know where the story came from. It's so all over the place. It's basically, it's like a parody slash examination of like the whole fitness trend of the early 90s.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's all about this company that comes up with this weird chemical that's supposed to make people healthier, but of course it does stuff it's not supposed to do. And
yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah. And
usually if it's something it's not supposed to do with your fitness pills, it makes me fart, or this one. No, not this one.
Not this one at all.
Has a few more side effects than that.
So, it starts off, as many bad horror movies do. It had a really bad title. It was like really cheesy font. It looked like Gumby kind of stuff, like claymation kind of font. It was like this weird boom, it had that kind of like Pee-wee's Playhouse vibe to it.
Yeah, and it was like a kind of a split screen, like a top half of the screen was the word body, like in this sort of fleshy type thing that was kind of pulsating and undulating out of the flesh was the word body, and then below was like the word melt, but it was also, looked like it was turning from ice or to ice, or it was just really bizarre, like just this weird split screen for this thing, and that was in itself was just so cheesily bad and so funny,
immediately comical. And it's one of those films that was designed, I think, to be funny, but it's not always funny by design. It's one of those things but it begins with it has this chemist who's leaving this fitness lab, where they're developing these compounds, and he's trying to get out of there, but he's been poisoned with these like mutant steroids, and it ends with him driving into this convenience store, and for some reason he goes in, and I don't know why he thinks this to do, but he drinks dish detergent, which pours through a hole in his throat.
Yeah, his throat starts to split open as is progressive as he's trying to get there to the thing. So yeah, that's how it's coming out of his throat.
So I don't know if he's drinking detergent because he wants to kill himself. They never explain why he's drinking detergent. It's so random and weird.
Not at all. And also he looks like, going back and watching it now, he looks like Anthony Scaramucci, the guy. If you watch it again, the guy looks like. which would have been a fitting end for that guy.
And so, like, I guess as a nod to Twin Peaks or something, he's driving with his little like tape recorder, and he's describing the process in the really bad scientific jargon. It's like, first phase is hallucinogenic, the second phase is glandular, the third phase is all goblin. And then he drives to a building and blows up.
The first phase is hallucinogenic. The second phase is glandular. The third phase is...
Well, he doesn't blow up. He drives into I think he drives into the side of a van in front of the house of some of the other characters, the young teenagers, and he flies through the windshield and onto the hood of the vehicle, and then during that process, you see him part of whatever he's been injected with, which has caused him to hallucinate and like these tentacles start coming out of his throat for something that's supposed to be chemically induced. They're taking a chemical. Like how is the chemical making tentacles that recede and protrude from your body? It just doesn't make any sense. It's more like an alien type spore or something, but.
And what's the point of having like these tentacles coming out of your mouth? It's like, except for doing some kind of like, riff on John Carpenter's The Thing, that's what it reminded me of.
It's a definite,
but not nearly as cool.
No.
So yes, it's like these spaghetti tentacles just pop out of his nose and his throat, and it's like, okay. and so then you see the subdivision, which is kind of like a McMansion little area in this. They call them garden estates over there, and it's like you see these two dorky teenagers, and you see this family. They're all running around their wind shorts, and like looking all their fitness garb and everything. So you see where it's going. But at one point, the two teenage boys drive off, and I don't know why they're driving off or how they find this place. But they find this weird, like...
Well, they get lost. I think they're lost on the way to some place. I can't remember from where they're... Yeah, like you said, it's so inconsequential, like where they're supposed to be going. And like, it's just all... like, none of it makes sense. Like the police on the scene of this guy's death with him lying on the hood of the car, just asking the neighbors, like, basically if they saw anything and what they're doing for the day, and just sends them on their way. Like, everybody around just gets sent on their way.
Yeah, just kind of like they wind up this place somehow. But oh, what a place they wind up at. They wind up at this weird, it's not even like a farm. It's just like this like shack thing. And you'll see a guy there, this weird, he looks almost like Lemmy, and actually he's the guy. Yeah. He's the guy that played. He was one of the guys from the original Mad Max movie. He was the guy that blew up in the opening car sequence, being chased by Mel Gibson. And when it kept going, the Night Rider, woohoo, the Night Rider.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the guy. So you already know he's going to be playing somebody weird, and
yeah, and he has a huge like tumor thing on the side of his face, like a prosthetic tumor on the side of his face. But I will say, for me, that section about 15 minutes in, when the boys arrive at this ranch farm, to all of the scenes where that ranch farm ends, which is like, maybe 20 minutes later because it's interspersed. But that, for me, that's the whole film. I mean, that's all I could do with just that. I mean, that is the beauty and amazement for me of Body Melt.
Yeah.
The rest of it's a nice homage to, the Peter Jackson type stuff, the old splatter Australian humor stuff. It's a nice homage to that. But for me, where the film just lives and dies on its weirdness and its just poorly executed humor, whether it's supposed to be or not, is where the film is made, right there in those farm scenes.
Yeah, because it starts off and you see that the Knight Rider actor, and he's sitting there like playing with this gigantic potter's wheel or whatever, and he keeps quoting Deep Purple's Highway Star. It's a mean machine. She's got everything. And he's like,
he's feeding his fish. I think he has a piranha.
Yeah. It's a mean machine. She's got everything.
He's like chippy, chippy, chippy or something else.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Always weird random sayings. So the guys show up and they're looking for like a place to eat basically and to fill up their car basically. So they're like a pit stop. So he's like, oh yeah, come on down and meet my children Bob, Bronto, and Push or something like that. Bab, Bronto, and Push.
Yeah, Bab.
And so there's two brothers, or although one is definitely a girl, but there's these two like lunkheaded, weird kind of Hills Have Eyes meets Laurel and Hardy, kind of these two dorks. Who are,
one of the guys, the male, he looks kind of like a better, fitter version of Chunk from the Goonies. So it just looks like he's a little better put together than Chunk, but it still looks like a ripoff of Chunk to some degree. And then his sister, or I guess it's I don't know if it's supposed to be a male or a female, but it's definitely a female playing it. The kind of heavier one just looks like a an unfortunate Susan Boyle. I don't know. She just looks like a young Susan Boyle. I don't know, but
yeah, they're unsettling. But they both kind of pale in comparison to Bab, who it's like if Marilyn Manson like fused with Ruth Buzzy from Laugh-In. It's like it's just
with a little bit of Jay Leno thrown in.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's very minimal prosthetics, but it's actually really effective because she is disturbing. She's physically creepy as hell, and you get a sense from the first time she meets the two boys that she's got this like hormonal thing going on. You can tell she's like turned on by them, and you're like, well, where's this going to go? No place good, you know?
Right.
And so the one kid who's got the Keanu Reeves bangs, who jokes about having spermatoso grosso, who he says that to the Mad Max guy when he's asking, you know, what kind of stocky Italians and all that. So he goes off with her, and so they're getting it on, and you'll find out more later. But then the two other mutants hang out with the other guy, and they're out there like they're like
well, I think he's talking to the dad at first, and then in the background you see the two freak twins kind of getting excited and running off of the back porch into the things, and then he follows them, and they start running out into the sort of outback area, and they the female puts on just a pair of wraparound sunglasses. It's just like a pair of these weird wraparound sunglasses, and it's a low angle shot, and she has these prosthetic teeth and these like that are just sticking out in a mutilated tongue, and she's just looking around with these glasses in this weirdest fashion, and then you see a kangaroo in the distance,
a really bad kangaroo,
a real bad, yeah, it's definitely a stuffed puppet. You know, so you see this in the distance, and then they get excited. The two get excited, and the female with the glasses, after she takes the glasses off, she grabs something out like a stone or something, and then she just looks at the kangaroo, and it's like a cut shot between her and the kangaroo, and then she just like lets out this guttural like Hee-haw! Well, no, that's later. She lets out this guttural. I don't know if it's a call for the kangaroo, but it's like. Remember, she has this like it's almost like she's trying to scream or call it, but it's so muted and so like guttural, and then suddenly she throws the stone, and it shows them standing, and the dummy kangaroo just falls over and being hit by the stone
like a piece of plywood,
and then immediately it's a too fast cut. That's one of the things the cut from the kangaroo back to them is too fast, because as soon as the kangaroo's dropping, it cuts back to them mid-expression, and they're like, "Yeah!" They're so excited, and I mean, just that sequence alone is just so bizarre. Then they go to the kangaroo, and the male starts to cut into the kangaroo's neck.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another kind of gory scene where they pull out something from the neck, and the guy's trying to figure out what he's doing. And it turns out it's
adrenal
gland. Yeah, and they call it psycho jelly. Psycho jelly. Yeah, that's what it is. Psycho jelly, which would be a good name for a band.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the whole scene. Then all the while you're wondering where his little friend went off to with Babs. Once again, we skip ahead. There's one part we also have to mention where they show up and they're asking if they have anything to eat or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
And like, do you have any breakfast? And then the immortal Babs goes, "No, we've got breakfast, lunch, and tea." And just that delivery, when we first saw it, we were just rolling because it was just so weird. That "and tea."
And the way she comes out, she comes out like a waitress. She has a pen and a pad, like she's taking their order, like this place is and I forgot about the mom or whatever.
Looks
she pops her head out briefly. Yeah,
looks like Lulu from Hee Haw, like covered in grease.
And I also, when I was rewatching it, there's also a disturbing part where after they kill the kangaroo and while the guy is having sex with the other girl, which we find out. You first think he's walking into the room where this is happening, because you hear like a panting noise, or you like hear like a some like panting noises, and he walks in, and at first you see a dog lying on the sofa, but then it immediately cuts to walking in on them having sex. But it's actually, when he opens the door, you see a dog sitting on the sofa and panting. It's just like, but all the time the sounds don't sound like a dog panting. It sounds like Foleyed, like people panting. Like, and then it cuts immediately to the television where there's like a porno, a penetration porno, and then the mom is laying on the sofa and he sits down on her.
Yeah, they actually show it, like it's like full on porn, and he sits on it. She's like, hey.
Yeah. At first you think it's the dog, which is really gross, because if you listen to the dog, you can tell it's not a dog. It's like just like these weird panting noises, and then they cut to that, and you're like, oh God.
And you always have a suspicion of disbelief in these films, but they always push it because there's always something you're like, what? And the fact that little dude, even as desperate as he might be, will want to hook up with this thing is really, and I call it a thing because she is frightening.
She's quite, especially when you see those two side by side. Talk about a match made in a toilet bowl.
Yeah, so they kind of leave that sequence for a while, and then they come back to it, because then they go and show another family back in that subdivision, that cul-de-sac, and it's a pregnant woman and her husband, and she gets some of that workout stuff, and she's acting all crazy, and at one point her belly explodes, and it looks like a bunch of streamers. Like it looks like a blow dryer is blowing. These little streamers are supposed to be like guts. They look like paper mache, you know?
Yeah, it's because they have her laying on the bed, and then they're blowing it from below. Obviously, like she's like there's just an open prosthetic there, and they're blowing it through, and it looks like crepe paper. It just looks like crepe paper that you would hang for a child's birthday party, and it's just blowing like outward. And it's like, why
would it do that?
Yeah, why? It's like she has an internal wind coming through her. It's like, what is it? Like, doesn't make any sense.
And then the husband comes in. And he's like, "What's going on?" And the placenta shoots out and covers his face like a face hugger, and that kills him. So it's like, yeah. So it's so strange. And then there's another family, and they're going to this retreat, which is held at the same place they make this compound, this supplement. And they show up, and it's like, the kids, like the little skateboard kid, and the parents are all, got their little shiny workout suits on, and you see they're kind of exploring the complex, and the kid starts like skating, and he's on. There's a skateboard sequence where he's getting all into it. He's like, he's doing these big skate ramps, and then he crashes, and just like in the beginning, this weird little thing crawls out of his mouth, it crawls back in, then he dies. Little tentacles, I don't know why. And then and then it shows I don't know if it's like the co-owner or like there's like a female assistant who's kind of like charted up. It's like the like the sex element of the film.
Yeah,
and she's with this big meathead roid guy. And at one point, he's watching porn while she's out doing something else, and his penis explodes.
Yeah, like we said, this film makes no sense like whatsoever.
Yeah, and there's like another sex scene where there's like I think there's at that point it cuts back to the gas station, and you start seeing that there's like a correlation between the gas station and the supplement company / physical retreat, because it starts building up that there's this family who are all weirded and mutated.
Yeah,
we're kind of we're kind of like the guinea pigs for this stuff in the beginning. Like the main scientist who developed it was like using them to like experiment on this stuff and see how it worked. And which again, Makes no sense. If you knew it was going to be people mutated and not help their fitness, why would you put it into mass production? I don't know. It doesn't make it.
Yeah, exactly. And believe me, when you see those three, there is nothing fit about them.
No.
Physically, mentally, or anything.
And so at one point, the scientist comes out to the place with all the mutants, and he's talking to the Knight Rider dude, and they're talking in this really weird conversation, which, just like the rest of the film, doesn't really quite make sense or have like any natural flow to the dialogue. Dialogue is really bad in this film; it's all over the place. And at one point, he calls him, the mutant dad calls him, "You're the Bob Geldof of the gym set." Okay, all right, what? Okay, doesn't really apply to anything. There's nothing about this guy's Bob Geldof like. Bob Geldof was not a scientist. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so, at one point you discover that the little guy who hooked up with the mutant girl was killed by her. Basically, I think she ate him alive pretty much.
Yeah, she says something about, "Do you want a love bite?" or something like that, and that's how it all starts, like in the process of it. And then she stab him with some kind of like a pitchfork or some kind of thing right in the balls. I don't know.
And she comes out just covered in blood. It's a very kind of garish image, And they also you see another couple back in the complex having sex, and at one point they die during it, and this one woman gets a giant tongue for some reason.
Encephalitis of the tongue.
But then you find out in the big reveal that the reason they all got this stuff wasn't because they bought it in stores as far as something. It was actually put in people's food that they were selling in health bars and things like that. So that has got into their system. And it was all stuff that they were selling at regular convenience stores and grocery stores. And the bigs, they have these two cops who are trying to find out who did it. And at the very end,
and the least memorable police you could ever. There's not a thing about them, was memorable that you could even worth watching these two. I mean, it's like they found the worst possible characters to develop as far as for those guys.
Yeah, because at one point they bring in a body for the coroner to look at, and the coroner's this really stupid hippie cliche character. You just want to punch him. He's really, really irritating. Yeah. And so then they discover that it's how the stuff got in their system. So they're like, okay, we gotta, all's well that ends well. We figured out what's going on. It's all taken care of. The place is shut down, the scientist is arrested, and so forth, and all of that. But then the final shot is showing that convenience store with a big stack of the food still on the shelf. Like that would be there for very long anyways. There'd be a national recall. These guys were such idiots, you know what I mean? It's so that's another thing that doesn't quite make sense.
Exactly.
They wouldn't be it's still on the shelves.
Yeah, I mean, it's overall, like I said, for me, this one is one of those that it is definitely worth it, because it's just, if alone for the scenes with the mutants, the scenes with the mutants, the gore itself is pretty standard gore, pretty much, that you would get in most of those 90s sort of Australian exploitation films. But like I said, the thing for me where I can watch it over and over and rewind and play is the farm sequences, because those characters there are the creme de la creme.
Yeah, it really is hilarious, And I was reading some stuff about the director Philip Brophy, Brophy, who basically said that the reason the musical score is so weird is because he didn't like traditional musical cues. I'm like, we didn't like any traditional anything. You didn't like traditional narrative cues or traditional dialogue cues. Nothing about this film is traditional, except that it's it may be in the kind of, like you said, the style of a Peter Jackson or something like that. I know that Quentin Tarantino is a big fan of this film. I remember reading that he was a big fan of it. And there's this really great company who I've mentioned before called Vinegar Syndrome, and I feel like they tapped into our brains and found all these films we used to watch and put out these great Blu-ray editions. They've actually put out a special edition of Body Melt, which I have not watched, but I'm sure is awesome.
Yeah, I read somewhere that there's an edition which has a behind the scenes making stuff of it. So that, whichever one you can find of that, would be definitely worth it.
Mm-hmm. And if anybody who's listening wants to go to my blog page for this episode, I'll have a link for that special edition that you can order from Vinegar Syndrome. I really am stoked about this company because they put out so much cool stuff, and I'm hoping maybe we can get some kind of a reciprocal thing going with these guys. Maybe get some promo copies because I would love to. I'd love to talk to them and
review some stuff.
and just kind of talk about what got them into this whole thing. So they're doing a really, really cool job. So definitely on that. I don't know what else really have to say about Body Melt. It's just a really weird, very strange, Ozploitation movie that is just disgusting and odd, and it's got kind of all your things you would want from a bad B movie. It's got the really bad special effects. It's got the bad acting. It's got the intentional and also unintentional comic relief. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff is like unintentional. I mean, like the exploding stomach and those things are they definitely weren't, I think, done for humor, but they're just so poorly executed that they're very funny. And the fact that it really has no logical narrative flow or any kind of like, it's so screwed up narratively that it makes no sense, which just kind of makes you even more, interesting. Because you're trying to piece it together. Like, why did this lead to that and that lead to this? And like, I don't know.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
First phase, it doesn't make sense. Second phase, it doesn't make sense. Fourth phase, blah. That's really about it. So yeah, check out Body Melt. We'll have a link to the Blu-ray on our site, and
hopefully we can find some clips too.
Yeah, definitely. And I had some clips of the episode and all that, so you guys can enjoy it. But we'll be back sooner than we were last time. We got some more goodies lined up for y'all. If we have to think what we're going to get into next, we've got several turd treasures we're going to dig up next. So just stay tuned, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Have a good one. See ya.
Done any good drugs lately?